Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Musical Soundbites. In this episode, we'll be speaking with Singaporean composers Syafiqah and Dr. Zechariah Goh, who have showcased different musical cultures through the saxophone. I have with me now Syafiqah Adha Sallehin, and she is a composer, educator, performer, and the artistic director of 𝘒𝘵𝘢 Acoustica Ensemble. So, Shaf, can you tell me more about the genesis of this work, the Malay Wedding?
It was actually commissioned in 2019, and it was for this performance and tour called Pictures at an SG exhibition. And this was actually headed by Dr. 𝘠𝘪𝘆. So he actually gathered 10 composers to write original pieces as a response to the artworks or paintings of local artists. So amongst the paintings were this particular painting called Malay Wedding. The painting is a depiction of a Malay wedding in the 1950s. So it attracted me a lot, of course, obviously because, it spoke to my roots and my culture and heritage. And I could sort of relate to it. And I was attracted to the depiction of this Malay wedding, which seemed a little strange because it didn't look like a Malay wedding that I am always usually accustomed to. The colors were very bright. There were greens and whites, and the painting style, it was rather abstract in terms of how you can see the figures, people coming together, but they're not realistic. But you can make out that they're figures, a representation of people wearing white, and you can also see the environment in which this Malay wedding was held. So I was really attracted to it, and I had a kind of response, also because as someone who plays traditional Malay music, I often perform at weddings as well. And something that was very customary of Malay weddings was the traditional kompang. So that became something that I drew from to create this piece as well.
Now, if I remember correctly, there were multiple sections in the piece itself, which had the title, I guess, really inspired by the different aspects of the procession of a Malay wedding. Can you walk me through that?
Okay, so the composition, there are 5 sections, as you mentioned. It starts off with what I would call the beginning of the kompang procession. And this is actually customary of kompang practice, where you have, just to give you a brief explanation of what kompang is. Kompang is a form of Malay music, percussive Malay music that is played in groups. And to start off the procession or the kompang performance, the leader would have to say a salutation to Prophet Muhammad, because the music has its links to our religion, which is Islam. So this particular section is more of a melodic interlude. So you can see the alto saxophone starting off with this strong melody. It's like calling for everybody to pay attention. We then proceed to the actual kompang rhythms. Okay, so in this piece, I incorporated kompang rhythms. Basically, the second section of the piece is this exposure of these kompang rhythms that is split between the 3 instruments. By the way, for your version, it is written for alto sax, tenor sax, and baritone sax, right? So initially, it was actually written for alto sax, tenor sax, and also the euphonium. So written for these 3 instruments, and I actually used the kompang rhythms to start off this particular section, to showcase the grandeur of the kompang music. And you can actually see it in the rhythms the rhythmic quality of the music. And the rhythms that I've used, actually what happens is that in kompang there are several rhythms that are played together by different roles, taken by different roles. And if you collectively listen to these rhythms, you'll get this rhythm that I actually use for the second section of the music. And then we go into the third section, which I believe it's the silat segment. So in this particular section, the kompang procession happens in such a way that it will stop for visitors to perform silat, which is a particular kind of martial arts to give blessings to the wedded couple. Yeah, and in this section, it's a different rhythm from what is played in the second section. So it's a particular rhythm that is used to accompany the martial artists. For me, it's really interesting because it showcases Malay culture as well, and how we are, united, all this coming together. This so-called the community bonding is there through the different aspects of our culture. And then we go into section 4, in which it becomes something more of a, I'm reflecting the couple, the wedded couple, on the dais. And this, for me, reflects the couple's ambitions and dreams and desires as a newly wedded couple. And so it's very lyrical. For me, it also touches the soul. And it also there's an element of celebratory element to it as well, And then we go on to the last section, which in which I so-called the kompang rhythms return again, and it's really like a celebratory section just to finish off the whole procession, the whole ceremony.
I think for me, my favorite part of the whole work was in the kompang section, because it's got this really energetic, rhythmic feeling to it. Could you show me how this kompang is done? Maybe.
Kompang is all about interlocking rhythms, okay? And you need to have minimally 3 people to play kompang. There are 3 different rhythms. The first one is actually like this. It's very straight. It's really on beats.
Okay.
So when it interlocks, you'll hear something else. You just focus up on the first rhythm. I'll do the second rhythm for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Because kompang it's a handheld instrument, so it's very difficult to play. That kind of really quick rhythms together. So that's why it's played in 3 different rhythms, split across the members, the people who are playing. Okay, so the rhythm is something like this. Just to show you a bit, right? So that was what happened in the beginning, and this is the whole entire rhythm when 3 different rhythms are put together.
Thank you very much for your time today. And our next guest is Dr. Zechariah Goh. I'm elated to have with me Dr. Zechariah Goh, who has composed many works for the saxophone. So, Doctor, can you tell us a little bit more about the Souvenirs of Singapore that you've created?
Souvenir of Singapore was written one of the Singapore Saxophone Symposium, which I've started in 2011. So this year happens to be the 10th anniversary. And then we like to showcase something from Singapore. So I've included these few folk songs inside this quartet.
Can you tell us how you use the saxophone to capture the essence of all these different musical cultures?
These are folk songs, so the tune itself already tells a story. So I have chosen some that represent the Malay, and some from Indonesia, and some that features the Eurasian culture, such as Jingling Dona, which is originally from Malacca.
Well, talking about Singaporean folk songs or Singaporean regional folk songs, What are your ideas or what are your opinions about what exactly is a Singaporean sound or Singaporean music?
A lot of Singaporeans are older than our country, actually. And then to say something like something from Singapore, it takes some time. USA is more than 200 years old, but it's considered a young nation. So the older countries such as India and China, they have a long history. Yeah. So instead of focusing on folk music, I focus on where we came from. So for me, I'm Chinese, so my inspiration comes from Chinese music as well. But also growing up listening to Malay and Indian music, that became my inspiration as well.
Was it easy to find a way to fuse the saxophone with these musical cultures, in the other pieces as well, such as Images of Tibet and The Confluence?
Yeah, these three pieces feature different part of the makeup of me as a person, because Tibet is Chinese culture, so that's me as a Chinese, as a race, Singaporean. And then the Mridangam is Indian music, but I use the Indian rhythm inside this tune. But it doesn't really sound very much like an Indian piece of music, but I use the structure of the rhythmic composition in this work. And for the souvenir, is a little gift to our friends who can actually play this when they return to their country. I believe you played this with your group in Finland as well.
Yes, yes, which we will show in the excerpts. What about your composition process? Would you walk us through that?
Usually I will start with an idea and then come a whole process of research. Yeah? And then the third thing I do is to start working on the work. So the idea and the research part actually take a long time. So for example, the Mridangam piece for saxophone and ensemble and Mridangam, I have to study how this piece can come together, the traditional instrument and the Western trained musician playing the saxophone together. And it takes me a long time to study this and eventually come up with this and put it together for the World Saxophone Congress 3-4 years ago in Croatia. So that's basically how I start a piece of work.
Can you walk us through a little bit more about this saxophone symposium which you created back in 2011?
Yeah, I remember you were primary 6 or primary 5 then.
Sec 2.
Sec 2, okay. That's a long time ago. The reason why Singapore Saxophone Symposium is because we don't really have a lot of professionally trained saxophonists, classical saxophonists back then. A few of us are actually studying overseas and they haven't really come back to Singapore. And to start this symposium, I hope to bring the musicians from overseas to perform in Singapore. And not just performances, we will have lectures, we will have discussion, we will have composition workshop, so that we create new works for the saxophone. So I think for the past 10 years, we have created many world premiere at the Singapore Saxophone Symposium. So it's like more than 40 pieces, new work written especially for the symposium.
So what are you up to these days?
I'm actually doing a lot of thinking. So I don't really compose a lot of music right now. For the past, since the COVID started, I've been spending time walking every day. So, and also cooking a lot and started learning French. These are things that to take me away from music. So I feel that I need to have a rest from composing. But I also will be writing a piece of music for a consortium of saxophonists who have commissioned this work. It will be a piece of music for alto saxophone and piano. That should be ready by July next year. So that's something new. And also writing a few choral pieces commissioned by Taiwanese choir.
So Doctor, do you have any advice for young musicians such as myself?
For every young musician, young saxophonist, I think that he should continue to be interested in many things in life. If you spend 8 hours practicing in a studio and you don't go out and have fun, what are you going to express in music? Yeah. So I think, and also have a curiosity and always want to learn something new.
Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence today, Dr. Goh.
Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you for tuning in to Musical Soundbites. I hope you've enjoyed the series and learned more about the saxophone and of the music of our local composers. I'm glad to be able to have the opportunity to spotlight their works. Hopefully one day, their works will be studied and performed regularly, just like the works of the great masters such as Bach, Mozart, Liszt and Berlioz. Being able to speak with these living composers and to learn more about their lives and music firsthand has been such a privilege. Take care and goodbye.
Goodbye.